We are live on a Saturday afternoon. Actually, why am I running this off? I can drag this right over here. Actually, making a couple strange choices. Where did my mouse go? I only have a mouse right here. Lost my mouse. We are live on a Saturday afternoon. Hopefully the audio is better. Hopefully the video is better. So today I can focus on answering questions and not be frustrated as to why all of my technology is not working on me. We got Christopher already joined in. Christopher, if you can let me know real quick, how's the audio and video? Do I sound crazy? Do I look at least reasonably normal? Not my face so much as the video quality. If you guys can chime in and let me know how things are going, that would be greatly appreciated. And we'll get started in just one moment. Trying to do my own little check on it. And what does it look like for me? No, that didn't do anything. I don't know. You sound great. All right. I like the sound of that. So we will go ahead and get started. Right at the moment, it's telling me we only have 2 people currently in here. So I might hold off just a second. Normally, we're like running way far behind on questions and I'm all backlogged. And then other days, it's like, oh, did this not post? Oh, I see what I did. We don't have as many people in here because I did not properly post my video. I like to do my posts as immediate posts, and Patreon does them to schedule. It defaults to scheduling posts rather than posting them immediately. So I guess I scheduled that for an hour from now. That's why there's only a couple of us in here. So Christopher, you want to ask a bunch of questions right up front? Looks like it's me and you for the next couple of minutes. If you're watching late, this is what happens when you have a show run entirely by me. I make lots and lots of mistakes. All right, what's the first question we have on here from Christopher? Christopher, good afternoon. What do you think a better version of Obi-Wan would have looked like? No duel with Vader, but more introspection on his time in Tatooine. These are always a little bit difficult to do off the spot because, like, hey, what do you think would be a better version of this story? What do you think would make a better version of this movie? And certain stories, I think, have very clear, obvious mistakes that you can tell what ruined them. Like the obvious mistake with Obi-Wan is that it was about him processing his guilt. It was about the Inquisitors hunting Jedi. It was about the start of kind of a version of the rebellion via Jedi on the Run. And then it was about Reva and her quest against Vader, all mashed up into a 6-episode run. That's just too much. And when you hear stories about the original version, which this was going to be a trilogy of films, and then they converted it into something else, there you go. That's exactly what happened. So yeah, it's just frustrating when you do all of that. Like when you try and mash all that in there. So like the obvious thing to say is like, okay, Reva, if you want to tell that story about her with the Inquisitors and revenge against Vader, that's kind of interesting. The story of a youngling out for revenge. They're no longer a noble Jedi, but a Force user out for revenge. That actually sounds like a really good story. I love revenge stories. Someone out for revenge against Vader that we know is going to end tragically because he's not going to die from that. Okay, cool. Tell that story. But shoehorning it into Obi-Wan, it's just too much. It feels like, wait a minute. I tuned in because I love Obi-Wan. I don't remember a point in my life where I didn't know who Obi-Wan was. Star Wars, it predates my earliest memories. That's how long Star Wars has been in my life. And then you brought back the prequels, and there's a lot of criticisms of the prequels, and I agree with a lot of the criticisms. No one's complaining about Ewan McGregor, though. And then there's that window of time. What was he doing in there? And then, of course, Ewan is older, so you can do it. That's fascinating stuff. But instead, we're telling a story about this other person. That is a good story in and of itself that could work in and of itself, but why mash it into this other story? So I think separate those two. Those are two different things. I don't know what I would exactly do with Obi-Wan. I don't have like a pitch in my mind for what I would do. I think there's some, you've read some of the stuff that they were looking to do. There was the original screenwriter's like, yeah, Commander Cody was actually going to be left on Tatooine watching Luke. And there's going to be this whole backstory about how Obi-Wan kind of pulled his chip out. And so then now he's helping Obi-Wan. Wow, that's really interesting. What that fills in a gap. Like Ewan McGregor. Obi-Wan has this quest that he's dedicated his life to, and for 10 years he's just been watching Luke. Why would he leave? How could he leave that quest that he's dedicated his life to so much? Oh, he would put someone there that he trusts equally. Okay, I got you. That makes sense. And what would draw him away? Leia? Okay, yeah, man, you can kind of probably convince me of that. You could find a way to tell me that would work. But I think all this other stuff, I just distracted from it. I think making him forget how to use the Force doesn't make any sense. Like, yeah, I'm here trying to guard Luke in case something comes up, but I forgot how to use the Force. That doesn't make any sense. So I think there's some of those things you just need to work through the you just simplify the story, remove some of the stuff, like have him dealing with PTSD, regret. I don't think you need to take away his Force powers. Maybe he's not as powerful because he just hasn't been practiced, or he's not driven by rage. He's a little bit lost. Sure, but not like he literally can't do anything. That doesn't quite add up. So I think some of that, but I don't have a specific pitch for how it would be better. The Disney Nerd, the audio and picture is clear. Hello, Mr. Chandler. Hello. Yes. Hopefully it will stay that way. I updated everything. I went through everything that I could to update it. That seemed to make a big difference. I cleared a bunch of hard drive space. That seems to have dramatically improved the quality. Last week, that was really frustrating. I'm sure you could tell it in the live stream, but I was like, why am I even doing this? Like, this is terrible. You guys were very gracious, but the technology was not. Christopher, what are your predictions for Better Call Saul? I don't know that I want to say too much about that if I had clear predictions, simply because if people haven't watched it, they're playing catch up, you're kind of like getting into spoiler category territory, even to say what you'd be predicting might happen. But I honestly, I don't really have any predictions. The thing that Vince Gilligan is so good at with his writing team is that they're smarter than me. They don't play into what you expect. They don't go fan servicey. So it's pretty difficult to know what they're going to do. And they're very, this week's episode, without going into any spoilers, worked entirely because the audience knows these two people survive and these two people are not in Breaking Bad. And so you're watching a show like, what is going to happen here? How is this going to play out? And it creates tension using the audience's knowledge. That's really cool. But I don't really have any specific predictions as to where things are going. I think if you're wondering what could push Kim, of everything that she's put up with that hasn't pushed her too far, what could push her too far? The last 2 episodes that we just watched. And so whatever that's going to look like with her. Yeah. Gamerman, after Obi-Wan Kenobi, does it make you even more worried about Lando? I am worried about most everything Star Wars right now. Pretty much everything Star Wars I'm worried about. I don't think a Lando show is actually going to happen. Kathleen Kennedy has this long history of announcing, hey, we're going to do this thing about this character. Hey, we recruited this director, this writer, and then it never happens. So they announced Lando years ago, not one update. And then I think Glover's made some comments about it, but they were very much like, yeah, if we can figure something out, if the timing works, yeah, maybe someday. I don't think it's going to happen. It doesn't feel like it's going to happen. But beyond that, modern Star Wars, too much of it is inspired by modern Star Wars. It's intellectual, it's creative inbreeding. Instead of bringing fresh new inspirations in, fresh ideas in to this world and expanding it and making it richer, it's just pulling from the past. So a Lando show, I never wanted that. I was not, like a bunch of other people said that Glover was the best part about Solo. I do not agree with that. And he's a great side character. I don't think that he's a lead character, which is the nature of who he is and what we know about his past. I'd much rather have the weekly adventures of Han Solo as a smuggler, as this guy in the criminal world that's not fully evil, but he's making bad choices. That sounds way more interesting to me than all the stuff Lando's up to. So I'm worried about it because I don't think it's a good idea. I think Star Wars is just in a really questionable place right now. Even as much as I dug Mandalorian season 2, in light of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, I'm like, ooh, maybe it was like cool to see that stuff, but that is a very simplistic bag of tricks that they were running on that show. So yeah, I don't think it's going to happen, but even if I did think it was going to happen, I am very worried about it. Cody Leach says, do you think MCU will make a knee-jerk New Jersey reaction to the reception of Phase 4, or stay the course and accept that their days of consistent praise are possibly behind them. Whew. I don't know. I don't understand exactly what is going on with the MCU, but really Disney as a whole, and I'm not sure where to point the finger. So everything seems to have gone bad since Bob Chapek took over and Bob Iger left. But it's not that simple, because these shows it's not like these shows were launched and approved once Chapek took over 2 years ago. There's a long ramp up time to get to the output that we've been getting that goes into the Iger era. So I think what really the culprit of so much of this is Disney Plus. That they decided they wanted to launch a streaming service. To have a successful streaming service, you need to have regular, consistent content. But no matter how much money you have, that's not the same thing. Human capital, people, creative energy is a limited resource. You can't just buy more of that. And whether that was just Kevin Feige was the secret sauce, and there's only so much Kevin Feige out there, that when he's doing 3 movies per year, he needs to find 3 directors. Well, I said this a few weeks back, but in the early phases, he was doing 1 movie per year. Then he was doing 2 movies per year, but some of those were with directors he'd already recruited. And then they moved to 3 movies per year, but a lot of those were sequels, and we'd already recruited the talent. And so the number of people that needed to kind of be shepherded into the storytelling group, the way of doing things that require a lot of his time, isn't quite as much. Like when you first recruit the Russos, you have to work with them a lot to figure out how to get them acclimated to the system. By the time they're doing Endgame, it's their 4th rodeo. They've done this before. They know how it works. And so we're kind of at this place where I'm not sure what exactly is going on here. They don't seem like a knee-jerk company, but I'm not sure. Like, it just feels so much like the amount of quantity of content is diminishing the quality. There's only so much Kevin Feige. We're hearing all these reports about VFX artists. There's only so many VFX artists. And when you're doing so many things, the quality just drops. You can throw as much money in as you want, but you don't have as many great ideas. You don't have as many great recruitment opportunities. And the people you do recruit, you can't give as much time. And then the number of people is much larger, so they can't work together to have as consistent of a product. So it drops. But what are they going to do now that they're looking at it being like, okay, last year's movies, Eternals, lowest Rotten Tomato score, very poor box office, very poorly received. Last couple of movies, some people loved them. A lot of people are less enthusiastic. The one movie that seems to have did buku crazy money and critical reaction was a Sony movie that was much more Spider-Man film than MCU. I don't know. I think a big part of it is that the business model changed right after we closed out a very clear saga. That we knew, that whole saga, Infinity Saga, we knew what we're building towards. We get to the other side of it, business model changes. We want streaming content and we want movies. And so then you throw a zillion things out there. And so much of what made it exciting was like the way that it was building towards specific things, and they kept the quality up. And so you knew the next one was going to be important. They were spread out enough that they were still exciting. Even when they were doing 3 movies at the end there, 3 movies per year at the end of the Infinity Saga, there was building so much to Endgame and Infinity where it was exciting. Everything was exciting. And now it's like, how many of you guys have already been like, I'm not even checking out Miss Marvel, She-Hulk? Nah, I'm not. How many people started What If and you're like, I don't need to finish this? How many people never even jumped into this pool of Disney Plus shows? And then just the diminishing excitement of everything. So I don't even know what the knee jerk would be. I don't even know, if they announce a couple weeks, like Iron Man's coming back, that's knee jerk if they do that. But I don't think it's going to happen. I don't expect knee jerk because it's just too complicated. And they've already announced the next several years of movies, projects, and TV shows. That's part of they've already announced so much. How could you even knee jerk when you have all of these shows already in production, in the works, all these movies already being worked on that have been announced, cast, and it's all part of this integrated story? How could you do a knee jerk correction? So I don't think we'll get a knee-jerk reaction, but I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea what they're doing, where they're going with this, or how to play out. And I think this was always going to be an experimental phase. I'm very curious if they're going to announce something at San Diego Comic-Con that's going to make some sense of all of this. That's going to make me go, oh, I see what you're building towards. And they're like, yeah, this was the one where we're laying a lot of groundwork. Phase 5. Hold on to your butts. It's all coming together and it's going to be wild. But yeah, I mean, I like the knee-jerk reaction would be to focus everything, which I think they need to do. I don't know what, or knee-jerk would be bring back Robert Downey Jr. Those are the two knee-jerks I can think of, but, and I don't know. I'm very confused by what's going on. The Disney Nerd, the live-action Lilo and Stitch has its director Dean Fleischer Camp. Have you seen any of his work? What have you thought of his directing? Dean Fleischer Camp. Let me look this person up real quick. Dean Fleischer Camp. Heading over to IMDb. Okay, so this is the person that just is the director. I guess he's edited his own movies. Let's go. We're going with no. I'm not at all familiar with this person's work. He just did this Marcel and the Shoe. I've seen the trailer for it. I saw the trailer last time I went to the theater. That's my only experience with this director. So I don't have any thoughts on it. I guess it's good they're bringing in a creative outside the box director that was doing like an A24 family film. Beyond that, I have no idea. I have no idea what to expect. I think Disney's in a bad place right now. I don't think they're being run very well. Maybe they're trying to correct that. Maybe even bringing in this A24 creative director is part of trying to fix that. But it's still a nostalgia film, and I guess that's the consistent problem with Disney is that they're only doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on the nostalgia game, which is our live action division is only doing live action remakes of our animated films. Pulling from what are modern day adults, what did they grow up with, do a live action version that they'll take their kids to. That's creatively bankrupt as a long-term strategy. There's just no creativity in it. It's just like literally how do we decide what project to do as a live action movie outside of our other main brands? We just look at what we haven't already done a remake of that's animated and pick one. That's creatively bankrupt. And I think inherently you don't recruit the best talent that want to do interesting things if that's what you're doing. Because why on earth would the best talent want to work for Mickey Mouse doing a creatively bankrupt enterprise? Everybody knows that's what they're doing. It's kind of the industry. I guess maybe because you have to get your big break to do it. I guess that's the reason you would do it, because you have to like join Mickey Mouse, do a big, gigantic, tentpole franchise film if you want to be able to do something interesting and creative. But that's, Star Wars. It's just, hey, look who it is from the past things. That's Disney. It's all nostalgia bait. That has me so nervous. Even Lightyear did something creative and interesting, but it was like, hey, remember 1995? So I'm not familiar with the guy. I can't comment on it. I think Disney's in a bad place. This year's really kind of solidified in my mind. Disney needs to abandon this safe bets thing because they're not working anymore. They're not as safe as they used to be. Zachary, do you think we'll ever see the Collector again in the MCU? I mean, we saw him in What If last year, so What If is part of the MCU, so sure. Will we see him live action? I'd say under 50%. Over 50% if you include What If, under 50% if you include live action, because it seems like that's played out. I don't know what the obvious thing, because he was used as this person that had Infinity Stones. That's been done. So I wouldn't think so. Middle Earth Lover. How do you feel about Loki getting a second season? Would you say you've lost faith in the MCU? Oh, we got a lot of questions in there. How do you feel about Loki getting a second season? I'm game for it. Kind of having this buddy detective noir story set in multiverse space that's a little bit silly and has some philosophical discussions. I'm game for it. Loki hasn't aged great with me. I haven't gone negative or anything like that, but it's like, it's not like when I'm drawn to rewatch. It was like really cool to watch it the one time. And it was like, cool, I watched that. But it seems like there's more fun to be had there, and how that will tie into their grander Korg, or Kang, grander Korg, someone totally different, grander Kang and multiverse storyline. I don't know. That's one of the frustrations with a lot of this, is that it just seems like they're doing a lot of things and it's not clear how it all pulls together. But I think that could be good. Would you say you've lost faith in the MCU? I wouldn't say lost faith in the MCU. I think their reputation has been greatly tarnished. There was a long run where you just expected everything to be up here and everything was pretty exciting. Everything was, not everything's going to be top tier, but very little of it is bottom tier. And that's not true anymore. That it's just much more scattershot. It's much more polarizing. And there's a lot more things where you're like, I just might sit this one out. You start a TV show and you're like, I might not even finish this one. That's a bad sign. So it's not losing faith entirely. It's that they've tarnished their reputation by putting so much stuff out there that very few people can watch all of it. In the broad sense, obviously there's always people on the internet that's what we do is we watch all of it. But in the sense of like, there's so many people that watched every Marvel movie. The percentage of people that watch every show is much lower than the percentage of people that used to watch every movie. And so I think they're just tarnishing their reputation and they're doing some stuff that they're making mistakes they shouldn't be making. And they're taking risks that don't seem like great risks. Like Eternals, I thought was a good risk. Didn't pay off for me. Bottom MCU film for me. But it was a risk worth taking. When I see like Thor doing the splits, that feels like a risk that's not worth taking. She-Hulk as like Ally McBeal in the MCU, that feels like a very weird risk to take. That's an odd, let's do something for a very narrow group of people. It just seems very odd, some of these choices. So they just have me very nervous and my confidence is shaken. I haven't lost faith, but my confidence is shaking. And shaking. Will you re-rank the Disney shows now to include Miss Marvel? No. Daniel Skinner, today's the 23rd anniversary of Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. Have you seen the movie? I think I have. Maybe I saw it. I don't know. Maybe I haven't. I don't think I haven't. I don't know if I've seen it beginning to end. I don't think so. I think I've like started it and didn't finish it or something like that. Zachary, thoughts on The Boys season 3? I only watched the first 3 episodes, whatever the first few they watched were. And I just kind of got bored with the let's try and out shock the audience. Maybe it's just because I'm so busy. There's so many other things I need to watch. But when it's like the opening scene with the shrinking guy in the first episode, like, okay, that's a bit much. And then they're like, if you thought that was a lot, just wait till Hero-gasm episode. Like, I'm just, you guys are exhausting me with how much you're trying to shock me. Felix Santos, have you seen The Bear on Hulu? No, I don't even know what that is. The Disney Nerd, have you seen the poster for the Winnie the Pooh slasher film? Yeah, it's been popping up all over Twitter. So I've seen it. Which seems like a really cheap gimmick where someone was like, hey, public domain, I know what I'm going to do. It feels like that sort of thing rather than a more meaningful creative endeavor. It's just there to be shocking. Rich Reviews, thoughts on Daniel Kaluuya wanting to do a dark tale on the Barney the Dinosaur? I don't know if he was joking or not. This is obviously a bad idea. It's obviously not a good idea. It feels like someone's doing a press junket and you get asked all of these. I haven't read the article. I haven't seen it. So I've just seen the headline. Like, I don't know much about it beyond that. It reads like these guys do press junket after press junket, and the people asking the questions are trying to ask a question that they can turn into a headline a little, get clicks. So they ask these questions about like, what property would you want to adapt? That you've got this serious actor that's clearly trying to do things he's passionate about. Clearly he's trying to get awards. He's not that he's not doing things that are more mainstream. He's got Nope coming up, but he's not trying to jump onto all of the latest franchises. He doesn't seem to be that guy. And then they probably ask him, what big franchise do you want to hop onto? So then he says something like Barney the Dinosaur, which is obviously ridiculous. He doesn't want to do Barney the Dinosaur. He doesn't like a dark take on Barney. That this is the same thing as a dark take on Winnie the Pooh. It's just take this sweet, innocent character of your childhood and do it dark. It's very like simplistic subversion of expectations. Light and innocent, dark and scary. That's not super clever. You can take anything. What if you did Coco Melon, except it's like Chucky? Like, you can take anything innocent, dark and R. It doesn't seem like a real suggestion. Prodigy, hey Sean, are you going to do a Stranger Things character ranking? I'm not sure. I don't know. I hope to. It might be in a couple days. It might not happen at all. I was out of town twice within 2 weeks. Plus, I did a deal at my church where I was off basically for a week. And when I got back to town after basic 3 long weeks of travel and church stuff, my wife left town for a week, and then she came back with COVID. So we've had a COVID household this last week, and I haven't tested positive. I don't have any symptoms yet, but maybe I'm going to find out when I take a test today, because I've got places I need to go. And I need to find out if I can't go to them. So I'll be taking a test probably later today to see if I've got it. I don't know why I wouldn't, because our house is a mess because we have children that aren't following the rules. But COVID's also a very confusing thing. So I've wanted to do a Stranger Things character ranking. Character rankings are normally pretty difficult because there's a lot of people involved and literal characters involved. And so they're tough to make the list, and then like who's where and why. And this one has 10 minutes of screen time, but they're awesome. This person has 8 hours of screen time, but they're kind of dull. They're just kind of tough to do. So they take a little bit longer. I don't know. It's been on my radar. I think I've announced it. I've said it. Hopefully it'll happen. I've got a few notes written down. I just don't know. Hey, Sean, hope you're doing well. Thoughts on Strange New World Season 1 and how it stacks up against Picard and Discovery. Okay, so if we're going to do a ranking of Picard, Discovery, and Strange New Worlds, I haven't finished Season 1 yet. I am like that's... got back to town, all my travel, had to catch up on Stranger Things, and then I finished Superman and Lois, and I'm currently doing Strange New Worlds. Like last night, I think I was watching episode 7. So if we're doing a ranking of Picard, Discovery, Strange New Worlds, Picard, Discovery, down here, bad Star Trek, Strange New Worlds, way above them. It's still got problems. It's still got some things it's got to work out. But it's absolutely everything they need to do. It's not everything. Absolutely a move in the right direction. Much, much better than Picard and Discovery. And, I posted a review on my second channel where I gave my thoughts on the first episode. And if anything was negative on that one, my negative things have probably diminished with the later episodes. I think some of those are valid concerns, but they're not. The positives are what you notice more so of like, okay, you're actually trying to do this right. You're trying to re-steer the ship and return to the feel of Star Trek rather than what on earth Picard and Discovery were. So haven't finished the season yet, but it's much better than Discovery and Picard. Discovery, I think, was just like from the very beginning, they just had the wrong idea. And they've just been trying to course correct extensively after demolishing the canon and having a tone that is absolutely not fitting of a Star Trek show. I mean, it was just kind of like, what are you guys thinking? And then Picard, I don't even know how to describe how bizarre of a train wreck that turned out to be, of like utter fan service while totally not understanding what the fans actually want at the same time. Daniel Skinner, since Marvel and Star Wars are starting to decline in quality, I'm worried that eventually both franchises will start to alienate audiences and people will lose the majority of interest in both worlds. I think that's happening right now. I think there's a lot of eyes being opened up like, wait a minute, Obi-Wan, that was supposed to, you're our only hope. Like this is the one that's supposed to, like, Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor's returning. This is okay, prime material. Wait a minute. Why is this as bad as it is? Why is this struggling the way that it's struggling? Like, I get why some people watched it and they really loved a lot about it, that you are seeing Ewan McGregor and there's these cool moments, great Star Wars moments in it. But there's so many things about it that were cheap. The way that they're cutting corners to lower costs, like not shooting on location ever. They're just using that wraparound technology that worked really well on Mandalorian. It is not working. It did not work nearly as well on Obi-Wan. Didn't work nearly as well on Book of Boba Fett, where you just started to see like, wait, this isn't looking right. This is looking cheap. Why are all the sets so small? There's just issues that started to come up and just bizarre things in the writing where something is just off. And I think you're absolutely starting to see people being like, I don't know about this. More like with Miss Marvel this last month, exponentially more people like, I think I'm going to sit this one out. I saw that in my comments exponentially more than any of the other shows. And I can only imagine She-Hulk is going to continue that pattern of people just looked at the trailer and they went, well, that's clearly designed for, I don't know what, 30-year-old women. I don't know, like the Ally McBeal crowd, whoever that is today. That it's like someone looks at She-Hulk and goes, nice butt. Like stuff like that, like, I think you're looking at your demographics and seeing that it leans male and young. And so you go, how can we make an MCU show that leans more female and a little bit older age? I think that's what this is supposed to be. I don't know, but I can see a lot of people being like, I'm going to sit this one out. And you're just seeing more and more of that. Mr. Hicks, your audio is a whole lot better this week. If you were forced to choose, would you say, if you were forced to choose, who would you say is in a better state currently, Star Wars or the MCU? Oh, the MCU. The MCU. Star Wars is in a terrible place. It's not even, I don't even think they're close, because Star Wars has a little bit of Mandalorian excitement and everything else is fractured. Like Mandalorian seemed to unify the fans, this one show. Everything else is a disaster. Not that like I'm saying Obi-Wan was a total disaster, but in terms of audience reaction, trust in the franchise, it is not good. Mandalorian was the one thing that seemed to raise trust in the franchise, and everything else they've done since Rogue One has just dropped excitement and dropped trust in front of and behind the camera, because they keep announcing things that aren't going to happen. Announcing, like, we're going to get a trilogy of films from Rian Johnson. They announced that 5 years ago. 5 years ago. Not one update. The Game of Thrones guys were supposed to do something. Not going to happen. Taika Waititi said it was announced, and then recently Kathleen Kennedy said his movie's up next. And when he's talking about his updates on it, he's like, yeah, I got to do a lot of research I don't have time to do. That doesn't sound like that's going to happen. There's not great buzz about Patty Jenkins behind the scenes of her developing the script for her movie. So Star Wars, like, there's no Star Wars movies that are in production. They're in development. They're greenlit and in development. None of them are being filmed. None of them have been cast. They're just in the writing process, and they're taking a long time to write them. They were announced, all of them, over a year and a half ago, and the scripts aren't done yet. And so there's no new Star Wars movies in sight, and a bunch of shows that have me nervous. Like, it's a bad sign when Andor, the one that was like, really, why are we doing an Andor series currently? I'm like, maybe that's the hope for Star Wars. Maybe that guy, the Bourne Identity guy, the guy that wrote the Bourne movies, maybe he'll be able to do something here that feels like a fresh addition to Star Wars. Everything else just feels like nostalgia baiting. MCU, I'm nervous about, but there's still things I'm excited about. Like I wasn't crazy about Thor: Love and Thunder, but I went positive on Doctor Strange 2. I've been pretty mixed on the shows, but I was mixed on Moon Knight as well as Miss Marvel, mixed on both of them. I enjoyed Hawkeye. I felt Hawkeye was a good show. Obviously, No Way Home, great theatrical experience. That's more Sony, more Spider-Man, but still it's in the MCU. So MCU's had a lot more wins, even with diminishing quality. But I think MCU's in a much better place than Star Wars. I think Kathleen Kennedy has done a terrible job, because her job is to recruit talent that sticks and shepherd a vision that excites the audience. And she hasn't done that. She's split the audience, and she's recruited so much talent that hasn't stuck. Almost every single project has had a troubled production. Last Jedi is like the one of the few projects that hasn't had a troubled production. Almost everything else has this weird backstory to it. And obviously that movie split the audience in a way that is not healthy. Some of that's on the fans, and a lot of that's on, they picked a direction that you always knew. They always had to know, yeah, if you make Luke a grumpy old man, some people probably aren't going to accept that. Okay. Whoa. I am way far, but I am taking way too long on all these questions. So looks like I got to speed up a lot. Felix, I think Disney Plus should step away from Star Wars content that revolves around the original trilogy characters. The expectations of fans are beyond reasonable at this point. I mean, I don't like the, I don't think the pointing it at the fans is like, I think they should step away from the original trilogy characters because those stories have already been told and the canon's already set. But I don't think it's like unreasonable to expect that in 6 episodes you don't repeat Princess Leia being kidnapped twice. I don't think it's unreasonable to say that, like, if you put Princess Leia in a trench coat and walk through a crowded room, that's a comedically bad disguise. That's not unreasonable expectations. That is, they screwed up. They were lazy. And then Book of Boba Fett, the issue there wasn't that our expectations were unreasonable. That was just an unbelievably underdeveloped idea for a show. That's not on the fans. They had a bad idea for a show that they did not develop on a story level whatsoever. So I don't think if you go and do a different show and do the same bad execution just because it's the original characters, like, you won't feel betrayed if you do it with a new character. But you also, if you have a person in a trench coat, the fact that it's Obi-Wan and Princess Leia isn't the issue. The problem is that it's a little girl in a trench coat as a disguise. It's, but I mean, I agree they need to move away from some stuff. Middle Earth Lover, would you ever do a blooper or something on your family channel of the kids interrupting your videos? If that happens a lot, I love when you leave them in a video. It always makes me smile. Yeah, I mean, I don't have I leave them in the video. Most of the ones I have, I don't have a lot of interesting bloopers anymore. Maybe some of that's just because I've been just doing it long enough that the way I blooper isn't as funny, and then they don't walk in as much. And so when they walk in, I just incorporate it into the video or something like that. I don't have a ton of really interesting stuff that happens to be able to do an additional video. Disney, have you seen the trailer for the new Monsters movie? It looks more like a play of the Monsters to me. No, I haven't seen it. I only saw terrible things about it. I'm not like a Monsters fan, so it wasn't even like Rob Zombie doing the Monsters is like 2 things I'm like, that's not for me. And then I only heard terrible things. Rich Reviews, would Disney ever do a live action adaptation of their Pocahontas, The Rescuers Down Under, Tarzan, The Great Mouse Detective, or Hunchback of Notre Dame? Would they ever? Yeah, anything they can do that'll they think will make the money, yeah, they'll do it. So why they haven't done, I mean, I think Rescuers, aren't as popular of a property. Great Mouse Detective, not as much of a great popular property. Hunchback's awfully dark, so that's tough. Pocahontas, I don't know. I think it's a little. I think Pocahontas and Hunchback are pretty dark. I don't know that that could be the issue, and because they deal with I don't know, they could be tricky. But like Tarzan, I don't know why that one hasn't happened yet. Zachary, when will your reviews of Nope and Gray Man be dropping? Will you do a Jordan Peele and Russo brothers ranking? When will my reviews drop? I don't know. I'm in a COVID house. You probably asked the question before I said that, but I'm in a COVID house. So I can't go out to the movies. So I couldn't go see Gray Man a couple days ago. So I'll be watching it when it drops on Netflix. So I suppose my review will be Friday. For Nope, I have a press screening on Tuesday. That's one of the things I need to take a COVID test before it to see if I'm plague infected. If I am, I obviously can't go see Nope. If I appear to not have it, and enough time has passed since my wife got it, I'll be going Tuesday, and it will drop on Wednesday. The embargo lifts Wednesday as well. So hopefully Wednesday and Friday, but I don't know because of the COVID. I don't plan on doing a Russo brothers ranking because I did one last year. I will be doing a Jordan Peele ranking. Alec, one of my favorite directors is John Hughes. What are your thoughts on his movies? My favorite is Breakfast Club, probably Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that wrote had a very distinct way that he was able to do comedy with a heart. And so I've never been one that gravitated specifically, oh man, I love John Hughes movies, but I look back at his films and I go, wow, he made a lot of really great comedies with a heart. Comedies that tugged at the heartstrings. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles would probably be way up there for me. He wrote Home Alone. That's way up there for me. But like I said, a lot of the even classic ones like Breakfast Club, those weren't movies that I watched as much growing up. Right, I didn't watch like Breakfast Club growing up. I watched that for the first time within the last 10 years. So some of even the most classic ones just weren't ones that I watched. Don't know why, no specific reason, but Planes, Trains, and Automobiles I've always been watching. Ali, would you ever consider checking out the Jane Foster comic storyline? It's highly regarded and has a great deal of depth in comparison to Love and Thunder, which I was not a fan of. I mean, I guess it's possible. Thor hasn't been Thor comics haven't been ones that I've ever been drawn to specifically. And the idea of Jane becoming Mighty Thor, that's just a plot line that doesn't in any way appeal to me inherently for all the reasons I've stated elsewhere. Regardless of the execution, it's a plot line where I go, you can do this great, but I still don't really buy it. So it's possible, but it's certainly not high on my priority list. John Sutherland, afternoon, Sean. Thoughts on the trailer for Revenge? Seems like a film that's going to poke fun at your home state. Do you think that will be enjoyable or offensive to you? Yeah, so I watched the trailer for it, and I don't know. I was 50-50 on it. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to love this movie because it's doing a pretty good it's doing a good job of making fun of Texas, or am I going to hate this because it's someone not from Texas making fun of Texas? And I do not respond well to, rich people from Hollywood making fun of small town Texas. I think that's pretty gross thing to do. And it's punching down. And so I watch the movie and it feels like it's punching down. I will not respond well to that at all. If it's like we're having fun and like it's respectful and like there's a million silly things about small town Texas, I can have fun with that. That's not the same thing as just punching down, like a very condescending look on a community versus like going in, celebrating it while also poking some fun at it. Like if there's no respect for Texas, man, I will not have a friendly review for that one. And I just don't know. I didn't really get like it could go either way based off the trailer. Like the trailer itself didn't immediately make me go, this is California punching down at Texas, small town Texas. Then small town Texas is in particular part of the issue to it of rich people from LA making fun of small town people in Texas is pretty jacked up. Gamerman, where do you think Moon Knight could go next since it's unclear where his character goes next? Blade, Black Panther Wakanda, Halloween special. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. I think there's plenty of room to just do Moon Knight season 2 and make it more about Moon Knight, the superhero, less about Moon Knight, the globe-trotting adventurer learning about Egyptian culture. I would much more interested in a Moon Knight show that's more about Moon Knight doing superhero things in this the conflict that comes with having a split personality in that, not the globe-trotting adventure. They cast an actor that you can easily, obviously, he's an actor that can carry a blockbuster. So there might be something. I don't think you'll be in Black Panther Wakanda Forever because they would have told us that by now. But in the Halloween special, that seems like that's going to be its own thing. There might be something to the idea of like doing this MCU dark with Blade, Moon Knight, maybe something to that, but I don't really know. And maybe we'll find out in the near future. Frederick, what Star Wars projects are you most excited for? I'm almost positive of a video ranking the projects based off my excitement. In theory, that's the same as it was because we only have trailers for one of those projects and other ones we've already seen. I think Andor, just because it feels like it's trying to not just do a nostalgia fest, would probably be the thing I'm most excited about at the moment. It's also the only thing we've seen a trailer for. But I have a video where I'm pretty sure, almost virtually positive I ranked all the projects they announced based off my excitement. Janice Skinner, now that Hocus Pocus 2 is an official release date on September 30th, do you believe Disney will send you early access with the screener? Yes. Also, is your daughter excited, Chloe, excited for the movie? She's excited enough. She's like, okay, that's coming out. But when you tell her something's coming out in 3 months, then it doesn't. It has to be much more tangible for her to have an excitement for. But I'm sure I will get a screener for it. DCI stuff. Any ideas on what big villain MCU4 wants to build up to? Kang. Something similar to Thanos is what I'm meaning. Thanks, Sean. Great quality today. Yeah, I'm glad that the quality finally worked. I was so frustrated the last couple times where it's like, well, so I wasn't frustrated 2 weeks ago, whenever not last one, but the one before that, because I didn't know the audio was bad until we got to the end of it. And there was a bunch of stuff. I was like, that was really good. I might clip that out and put it on my second channel. Then everyone's like, dude, the audio is terrible. I was like, oh no, I didn't even know. And then I tried to fix it for last week and it did not work. But I think Kang is kind of who they're setting up to be some sort of big villain, who's introduced in a sense in Loki, a different variant of him, and then he'll show back up in Ant-Man, and maybe this will play out in some bigger sense in another movie, but that's the one that's kind of on the table. And then it's not really clear because they've teased Celestials, they've teased Kang, but I don't know, and then teased Zeus. They teased all this stuff, but there's not anything that feels like a clear direction. John Sutherland, since Star Wars has kind of lost its way, do you think Taika Waititi Star Wars could breathe new life into the franchise? No, or just make it worse? Yes. I think Taika at the moment is a very bad pick. It was at a point in time where if Star Wars is healthy and you're getting normal Star Wars and you're like, yeah, Star Wars is doing well, and you bring someone in to do kind of like this standalone story that's really wacky, wild, and crazy. Okay, cool. But when you only have one, like the next movie coming out is Taika Waititi, and all signs point to he does not know how to turn the irreverence off. The thing that Star Wars is missing isn't like irreverence. It's like, man, if only Star Wars had more irreverence, it would be better. If only Star Wars was a comedy, it would be better. It feels an awful lot like Kathleen Kennedy just looks out and goes, who is popular with the internet right now? Colin Trevorrow, Jurassic World, we'll get him. Guy that directed Chronicle, we'll get him. Game of Thrones people, we'll get them. Taika Waititi, people love Thor Ragnarok, we'll get him. And then it's not about this grander vision of Star Wars. It's about trying to guess what the fans are going to want without having any understanding of the fans at all, having any understanding what the franchise needs. And Taika Waititi and his bag of irreverence, that does not seem like the thing that's going to fix Star Wars and unite the fans. Zachary, will you do any how to fix videos in the near future? Is that a series done? Those were some of my favorite videos that you did. I mean, I don't have any planned, and the series isn't done. I just haven't. It takes a specific movie where you watch it and you go, that was close, but you missed it and you went off the rails. If you hadn't done this, if you changed this, it could have worked. And not every broken movie's like that. So people are always like, oh, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, that's your most disappointing MCU film. Could you do how to fix on that movie? No, because everything about it, I would say, change the whole thing is what I would say. I think fundamentally I would do a totally different plot. Well, that's not a how to fix. That's just what would I do? And developing a whole new story is very difficult. And that's even kind of where I ran myself into some issues with my Star Wars one. I was planning on doing the entire prequel trilogy, but as soon as you do what I did with my Phantom Menace, then I have to come up with my own story for Attack of the Clones, and it gets tricky. So that's kind of the issue with some of it. Yeah, so I think if I looked at if I went through all of my major franchise rankings, I could probably find some movies and can find some good ones in there. Like Spider-Man 3 is probably a good candidate of a movie where I look at it and go, that could have worked. That was close. You could have done something there. And I think you just take Sandman out and lean into the Venom side to it. That's the part that Raimi didn't want to do. Lean into that. And the movie's a lot better. Rich reviews. My LMO is showing in the next month. Last Unicorn, Xanadu, Cat People, Grease 2, Prince of Darkness, the best little whorehouse in Texas. I drove by the house from that back in February. It's actually across the street from the house in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 4, the one with Matthew McConaughey. They're actually like on the same road across the street from each other. So I drove down this road for the purpose of driving by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house because I just done my Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, and on the other side of the road is that house. Which of those should you see? I mean, I can't really answer that for you because those are all very different movies that might be appealing to you in very different ways. So I really can't make a recommendation because none of those are like, I mean, you might see any of those for a wildly different reason from why you would watch any of the other ones. Would you consider doing a Disney directors tier list like you did with the MCU directors? No, I wouldn't, because I don't. I mean, first off, Disney directors, if you're talking about Disney animated films, there's 60 movies. So there's already over double the number as you have for the MCU. But a lot of them have 2 directors, and you don't have nearly as many where you have someone like, Russo's directed 4 of the MCU films. I don't know if you have nearly as much of that with the directors of the animated films. So it's not even remotely on the table. But it's also, a director for a Disney movie is not the same thing as a director for an MCU film. Director for animation is very different from a director of a live action film. So I don't even know how I would do that. That's outside of my pay grade. Wilson, what are your thoughts on Scarface? I haven't seen Scarface in 20 years. It's kind of one of those classic gangster films that when I watched it, I was like, I don't feel like this one lived up to the hype. It's got the classic moments, say hello to my little friend, mounds of cocaine, and people being cut up with a chainsaw in a bathtub and stuff like that. You got the classic moments. But as like a movie as a whole, it was not one that in any way resonated with me. So, but it's been 20 years. Maybe it would play different for me now. Dennis Skinner, have you seen the Japanese Spider-Man TV show from the late 70s? No, I have not. Sorry. Real Travis Touchdown NMH. Hey, Sean, what Marvel Disney Plus shows would you really like to see a second season? Hawkeye. I feel like that one actually felt like a TV show. And so it had the right size, scope, scale for all of that. So I think you make a show out of that, and it just lends itself better because you don't need a big effects house. You don't need all of that. It's people with bows and arrows fighting street level crime. That's what an appropriate TV show size story is. And I think a lot of these other ones are going too big and too ambitious. Wilson, thoughts on Scarface? You don't have to ask questions multiple times. I literally just go through them in order. John Sutherland, a few live chats ago, you were talking about Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. You said you've always loved that film, even after the backlash. What backlash were you referring to? I don't know if that's the way I phrased that. I don't know if that like. I don't think I used the phrase the backlash. What I'm referring to is, from my perspective, everybody loved that movie. It was a gigantic hit that made $1 bazillion. I had all the toys. My sister seemed to like it, watched it all the time. And then I grew older and realized, oh, wait, this movie wasn't as beloved by everyone as it was by me. And that's not specifically backlash. That's just to say that. Amber Alert in Corinth, Texas. I have no idea where that is. The big one is Kevin Costner's accent, which comes and goes, and when it's there, it's not very good. That's the big one that I've heard people mention. Maybe the bleakness of it. Because I don't agree with it, because I've always loved the film. I can't really speak to what it is because it's not a specific controversy besides the accent. It's just a movie that apparently not everybody loved, not everybody enjoyed. Thoughts on Samaritan going straight to Prime Video instead of theaters? So I tweeted this out. My buddy Zach Pope, he kind of tweeted about being disappointed that it's not going to the theater. And on the one hand, I'm disappointed that I won't be able to see the movie on a big screen. As someone that likes Stallone, as someone that likes the director's previous movie, and as someone that likes superhero stories. At the same time, I think these types of movies that aren't based off an IP, that aren't part of a franchise, that are original stories, that have star power, I think they tend to do better on streaming. I think if you drop Samaritan in a theater, very modest box office results. And that's the narrative. That movie came out and yeah, I mean, maybe it was good, maybe it wasn't, but it just doesn't make much of a splash. But you drop brand new Stallone superhero movie on streaming, for a week they have it as the banner. So whenever you open up Prime Video, Stallone as this retired superhero, Stallone gets people to click, and then all of a sudden it makes a big splash, and it's the number one movie on Prime. It's the number one streaming movie for a week, and that's the narrative. Is the narrative Samaritan fumbles at the box office, or is the narrative Samaritan number one movie on streaming that week? Those are two very different narratives for the same movie. So I think a lot of these movies that I'd like to see them on the big screen, I think it might do them a big favor. That it's just a way of releasing them that changes the narrative, and more people see them because of it. Alec, this year when I will be a 12th grader, I'm planning to use Sean Chandler quotes similar to Zachary. I'm not sure if I missed something. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but I am honored. I guess you guys know what you're referring to. I'm not, I guess it maybe a yearbook quote, senior quote, or something like that. Yeah. Gamer Man, how well do you think Superman and Lois does as a standalone, and do you think they could try to start its own universe? I mean, I think the show works because it's standalone and it doesn't have the burdens of trying to tie in all these other franchises. That's what the thing that ended up killing Arrowverse was, that it was this big universe that was interconnected, and there was just too much, and it just crumbled under the weight of it all. I do not want that for Superman and Lois, so I don't really want to head in that direction. I wouldn't mind, like, if you bring in other DC characters onto the show, that's fine. And these shows have been doing things like that forever. They've always had little cameos of people. Sure, do that. Don't use it to spin off and do the Superman and Lois verse. And all of a sudden we have 5 other shows in this universe now. It's just repeating the same mistake. Let it work on its own. And I'd say stop doing these 16-episode stories unless you have one that actually deserves that. If you don't, do like 4-episode arcs, 6-episode arcs, a couple standalone stories in there, and do that instead. Wilson, hopes for Stranger Things season 5. You know, like I don't sit there and just by default have a list of hopes for something. Generally speaking, if you're like, what do you want this person to die, or do you want these people to get together? I honestly don't really have hopes like that. Like the hope is that they've said this is the last season, so find a way to land the ship in a way that makes sense. They've found a way to give a mythology to everything that's happened that makes sense, that you could bring it to a close, that you could actually tell a story and get to the end of it. And once certain events happen, Hawkins is cleared of this perpetual danger that it's faced. So whatever that would be, however that needs to play out, do that. But like, as for like, do you want 11 to marry this person and go off to the, I don't have any specific wishes for it. A lot of times even that's because I trust that they're smarter than me. So anything I come up with isn't as good as what they're coming up with. So until they give me more information and where I can start tying things together in a sense, I don't really have specific things that I want. The Disney, I watched Snatch for the first time 2 days ago. I liked it, but didn't love it. I can't figure out why. What's your opinion about it? How dare you? How dare you? Well, I talked about it more specifically in my Guy Ritchie ranking, so you can hear my elaborated thoughts on it. That's one of those movies that came out when I was 20 years old. And so that was the cool new foreign import film that had a different vibe, different style. It's kind of like Tarantino, but amped up with this whole other energy and style to it. So everybody loved Snatch. Everyone is my loved Snatch when it came out, and we discovered Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and so absolutely loved them. There's certainly an acquired taste. There's certainly a bit much in how stylized and energetic they are. But if you want my more detailed thoughts on it, just check out my Guy Ritchie rankings. DJ Gamer, what if we take Sean Chandler Talks About and make it dark? Not a bad idea. That's realizing even right now I am still 30 minutes behind on all of this. Questions have been coming in. It's crazy. I was like, what is it? This is an awfully late reference. Oh yeah, that's right, because I'm way far behind on this whole thing. Like, yeah, what if you take Sean Chandler Talks About and make it dark? What's like, that's where, I don't know. So you look at so much stuff in Hollywood and you hear their pitches for things and they're not remotely clever. And like even so much of the stuff of like, why do you have an issue when they make a movie and, you know, do the girl version of it? It's like, because they're just being lazy. Like, I don't really care if a movie stars women, but if you just take a property known for starring men, like, how can we do it different? Make it ladies. How many franchises have they done this exact same bag of tricks with it and they promote it that way? Yeah, this time it's with ladies. Like, you're being lazy. Come up with something interesting. DJ Gamer, so you've said you're really worried about the MCU moving forward. Is there a specific project coming out or one you would like to be made that would put the MCU back on track? It's not about one project putting it back on track, because the MCU is not like, the thing that makes the MCU exciting isn't that, man, Winter Soldier was great, therefore the MCU is great. Guardians of the Galaxy is great, therefore the MCU is great. Avengers was great, therefore the MCU is great. It's not one project. It's not that you could like, all right, if they announce Young Avengers, we're back on track. It's not that. The appeal of the MCU is this cohesive shared universe that had a certain forward momentum where we'd have these stories that really do stand alone, but they all feel like they're a piece of the puzzle and they're building towards something. And you have this forward momentum towards these events. And then now it feels like it's going off in so many different directions where you're like, I'm not sure where we're going. I'm not sure what this is headed towards. And I used to be excited about everything you put out. And now I'm significantly less excited about everything. And some of these I'm not interested in at all. So it's not, man, if they announce Blade is going to be rated R, all's good. If they announce Deadpool 3 is in the MCU, all is good. It's not that. It's how do you capture that energy again of feeling like we're moving towards something. Forward momentum, a shared universe that's cohesive, tied together, and not just a whole bunch of different threads going in a bunch of different directions. And every one of these is designed for a different group, a different demographic. And then this one's for a younger audience, and this one is for women, and this one's for grown men. I want it to feel cohesive again. Zachary, have you thought about doing a franchise showdown with the Disney Plus Marvel shows? Well, I don't think you can do a franchise showdown because it's just the shows. They're just individual shows. So it's not really a franchise showdown. It's just shows. So could I do a series showdown of the Marvel Disney Plus shows? Maybe. It's the same problem I kind of run with all of this of like, I want to find different ways to talk about all these things and have exciting rankings after every new release, but there's just so much stuff dropping that like, okay, didn't I just do that video? All right, didn't I already time? All right, I'm going to talk about it again in a couple months. There's a little bit of that going on. Yeah. Felix, do you think we'll ever see a Star Wars reboot? I don't know, maybe. I guess it's possible. You think Star Wars turns 50 in 5 years. It's 45 years old right now. So 50 years sticking to one continuity. That's pretty impressive. And you get yourself into trouble because obviously they've expanded the mythology and you get to a point and you're like, you want to tell stories, but you don't want to violate the continuity. What do you do? And so, Force Awakens was already soft reboot of A New Hope. So if you did a remake of A New Hope, you literally remade A New Hope twice in a pretty short window of time. So could it ever happen? Will they ever do it? Maybe. I don't know. Star Wars seems pretty sacred. So I don't know. I think I think as dumb as they are, they might not even be that dumb. As desperate as they are, I don't think they're that desperate. Daniel Skinner, going on vacation to Yellowstone with my family, rereading the first 5 Percy Jackson books made the experience 10 times better because the book franchise that my family loves to read while we're in Yellowstone. The camping ground we stayed at was populated with people from all across the U.S., which makes me want to ask, would you like to visit Yellowstone? I mean, I wouldn't. I don't do a ton of just vacation travel like at all. I'm just not that kind of person. Yellowstone wouldn't be the first place I'd be like, let's go to Yellowstone. That's not the thing that interests me specifically. But I'm giving it much thought either. I probably need to do more things like that with my kids. Dennis Skinner, how would you rank the Terminalist, Peacemaker, Reacher, and Obi-Wan? Bottom, without question, is Obi-Wan. Distinctly, like bottom. I don't know how I would rank the Terminalist, Peacemaker, and Reacher because they're just not. They're like 3 unrelated franchises. Like Reacher and Terminalist kind of have some similarities of being like dad shows based off of books, but they're not that. They're like that's where the similarity kind of ends. Like action shows for dads. One of them I just watched, so I'm in the honeymoon phase. The other one I watched several months back. Both of them were better than I expected. Both of them I got pretty invested in pretty quickly. And then Peacemaker's a superhero show that was refreshing. I don't know how I would rank them. All I know is Obi-Wan is the one that easily should have been on top, and it's easily on bottom. Ali, I loved the She-Hulk in the comics. I was excited, and until I saw the trailer, it looks pretty bad to me. It's become the trend for me with the MCU recently. Hopefully, Comic-Con announcements will be cool. At the same time, like if they go out there and they announce the cast of Fantastic Four and who's directing it, and they announce we've got an X-Men movie and these people are in it, and when they announce their big event film that's coming. And so we go, there are 2 big properties that they've been sitting on now for 3 years. They make a definitive announcement about them and an event. What this is all building towards, and we go, oh, that's how this is all going. Oh, gotcha. Cool. Thanks, Kevin. I'm down. 3. They come out there and they go, guys, guess what? We're doing season 2 of Moon Knight, Miss Marvel. We're going to launch a show about this person. We got plans to do this new TV show. We're going to do these 3 animated shows. And you look at it and you go, wow, you announced 10 more TV shows. You've already got 37 shows on the roster, and you announced 10 more movies. I'm just tired from the announcement. You're exhausting me. There's already too much. Like if they just bombard me with new announcements, you can get me excited with Fantastic Four. You can get me excited with X-Men. You can get me excited if you announce something that makes me go, oh, I see where this is headed. From there, I don't know what they would announce that would make me go, I'm excited now. I just don't know what that would be if they're just announcing more projects, because they burned through that. We did that the last year and a half, like stuff. And went, ooh, we are getting quantity over quality. So what gets me excited is you say something that's actually exciting, not just stuff. John Sutherland, is Star Wars Force Awakens still your favorite movie of 2015? I know the trilogy as a whole kind of soured your experience on The Force Awakens for many. I don't know. I doubt it. I don't have a... did I say it was my favorite movie of 2015? Like, I might have said that, but I don't... I've made over 2,000 videos and said a lot of things and had a lot of shifting opinions. My opinion on Star Wars and the sequel trilogy has changed a lot, so I wouldn't think I would stand by that. No. Gamerman, if Kang the Conqueror is supposed to be the main villain of the next MCU saga, I think he was introduced too early. As Thanos wasn't introduced until 2012 MCU, 5 years in the Infinity Saga. Well, I mean, that's a little bit. I mean, I don't know why that would be too early. I don't know why that teasing something very early would be a problem. I mean, like you're comparing. I don't know. I don't see the logic of the argument. Because Thanos was introduced a couple years before he really even had a part in a movie, because he's just introduced with a little cameo in Avengers. Then he's appears briefly in Guardians, and then he's not really a major player until 6 years after he's teased. So, I mean, saying it's too early just because they took 4 years to introduce Thanos, I don't know why that would, I just don't understand. I don't understand the logic to it. What is the benefit of waiting 4 years, especially right now where they're putting it in phase 4 that's 18 months old? They've put out as much content in these 18 months as the MCU put out in the previous 12 years. So comparing it to be hey, it was too early because normally they waited 5 years. Well, if you wait 5 more years to tease what's next, well, I mean, I think even in a point in time where the audience is trained to expect the next exciting thing, and you're going to wait 5 years to introduce what that is. Why? I don't follow the argument. Dennis Skinner, are you disappointed that Salem's Lot was delayed to 2023? No. Dennis, the Disney nerd, in my opinion, Disney should not do a live action adaptation of Pocahontas. I feel like the fans would want a more accurate story like Mulan, and the real story of Pocahontas is not family friendly. Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of the problem when you have an adaptation of a real life event that was very different times, not very friendly to modern sentiments. And also with Hunchback of Notre Dame, an adaptation of an adaptation, they're tough to translate. Alec, don't want Vengeance to turn into King of the Hill, the movie. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. People in Texas love King of the Hill. So I don't know where you're taking that one. As someone that lives in, Mike Judge, shot Office Space in Austin right around when he did King of the Hill, and he's a Texas boy and spent a lot of time in Texas. Texans loved King of the Hill. Loved it. That reminds me of so many people I enjoy, and that neighborhood feels like somewhere where people who love King of the Hill. So I'm not sure what you mean by it, but yeah, all that to say, yeah. Anyway, I don't know where to take what you're saying. Rich Reviews, you should seriously come to Virginia Film Festival. Also, you could come to Fantastic Fest or South by Southwest. Dennis Skinner, if Jason Momoa was cast as John Carter back in 2012 and Disney used better marketing for their movie, do you think the movie would have made a bigger splash? I don't think the casting was the issue. And Jason Momoa in 2012, it's not like he was a bigger name than Taylor Kitsch. You're just kind of picking which person that's been a fan favorite TV show and was getting some movie roles, which non-A-list person 10 years ago are you sending to Mars? Jason Momoa today has been Aquaman for almost a decade. Jason Momoa in 2012 was the guy that was a memorable but fairly small part in Game of Thrones. Significant in one of 8 plot lines. That he didn't have a lot of lines. Or he didn't he's a very barbarian character that led them. I don't remember exactly when Conan came out, but I don't remember if it came out before or after this 2012. But he was not this powerhouse. So casting, I don't think would make zero difference. Zero difference. I think the marketing was a huge part of what killed that movie. The marketing campaign wasn't very good. It didn't sell it very well. And I think it's just some of it was John Carter's a property that I don't think it's tough to make John Carter feel fresh when you've had 100 years of movies inspired by it. specifically Star Wars. It's this incredible sci-fi property from 100 years ago, but we have all this stuff that built off of its legacy that's moved into the mainstream. So I think it was always a tough sell, but Taylor Kitsch wasn't the issue. He just, yeah. Mr. Hicks, my comment was too long, but I was trying to ask what you anticipate at the box office this weekend. I don't know. I've been in COVID house. I haven't been paying attention to it as much, so I don't really have expectations. I don't expect a hot weekend at the movies. The early number I saw was that looks like Thor's going to have a 68% drop off. I don't remember what I said. I think I said I predict a 68% drop off in last week's video. I think I said that, and that's what the early predictions are saying. So no surprise at all there. None whatsoever for me that it has a 68% drop off. And Maverick has a 24% drop off. No surprise there either. Pro Sports Podcast. What do you think the new Black Panther will be like? I have no clue. I have no idea what to expect from this movie. And it makes me nervous because they have said so little. They've been played so coy with such pivotal questions, and the movie's not that far away. And I don't know what they're doing. So I guess maybe that's the other thing they can announce at San Diego Comic-Con. You make it the Black Panther Wakanda Forever panel, and you come out and you drop a trailer that blows our minds. And maybe they know they've got an absolute winner on their hands. It's awesome. And they're going to drop it, and wow, that was incredible. I don't even know who the star of this movie is. I mean, I have no clue. I have no clue what this movie is. They got dealt a bad hand, and I think it probably would have been better to pull the movie from the roster and say we're pulling Black Panther 2, and we're gonna sit, like, not because we don't want to do another one. We just need to sit. We need to process this, and then we'll come back to it. And they didn't do that. They kept moving forward. It just looks like red flags to me. They're dealt a terrible, tragic hand, and they just kept pushing forward. I have no idea what movie you make when your lead actor literally died and you're not recasting the character. That is just a terrible hand to be dealt. So I have no clue what this movie's going to be. I don't have any guesses, any speculation, and it seems very suspicious that they haven't been saying anything. And even we're like just learning this past week, yeah, Daniel Kaluuya's not in the movie. You got like 5 named characters in the previous movie, and several of them, like, the character's dead or the actor tragically died, so they can't return. What is this film? I have no idea. Gamerman, since Superman Lois has certain people cast from the Arrowverse, would you want to see John Cryer return as a more mature Lex Luthor, or Stephen Amell as comic accurate Oliver Queen? If we find a way to do Lex Luthor in there with John Cryer, sure. I could be game for it. I think maybe that's because I didn't really watch enough Supergirl to feel the connections there enough. So maybe you could do that and play it out. But I don't want Stephen Amell coming back. You're just playing games at a certain point in time. Like, you're trying to, we're our own universe, but we're not. I don't want to play that. Like, let the show stand on its own. We don't need cameos. We don't need gimmicks and tricks. Trust your writing. That's what I think they need to do. Goodbye. Senior quote. Yes. Okay. Now I understand what we were talking about before. Raiders review. Read any good books lately? No, I've been busy. that I haven't read books. I've listened to some podcasts. So no. I need to get back into books. I fell off the radar wagon off the last 6 weeks or so. Gamer Man, last question. Do you think some Disney Plus series, not all of them, should drop whole seasons at once? Because I'm hearing some people say that these shows should be movies. No, I don't think that would solve the problem. I think there's a lot of wisdom to Disney giving us a month to a show, whereas a month we just keep talking about the show. And so it keeps it in the discussion for a whole month. So even though they don't have a ton of new content on Disney Plus, they have weekly new content. I think that does wonders for just building anticipation, excitement, and making your show feel bigger than it actually is. I think that they should do longer seasons, or they should do them as movies, but you don't resolve that by just dropping 6 episodes of an underdeveloped story or bloated story all at once. Disney, the final comment for me. It's pretty sad how 4 to 5 years ago, DC was in a really bad place and are now doing okay. Well, that's not sad. That's good. Now, Disney and Star Wars aren't in the best place. Funny how the tides have turned. That is true. Yeah, and I mean, some of that's just the nature of storytelling groups. Nobody bats 1,000. Nobody makes every shot. And so you have a hot streak, and then eventually things change. You get new executives, you lose some of your main talent. And I think a big part of it also is when you're running strong with some of these ones, like you just look at Disney over the last 50 years. Walt Disney dies, and then they go into the Dark Ages, Bronze Age, and their creative output in the 70s and 80s wasn't really the best. And then the Renaissance begins, and they have this incredible run, like a 5-year run, where they put out 4 of their best films. And then Rescuers Down Under thrown in there as well. But like 4 of their like top 10 Disney films come out in a 5-year time period. That's crazy. And then 7 years later, you do the post-Renaissance, and we're putting out like Brother Bear and Chicken Little. And what happened? How did we end up doing all of this? And then this last decade, it got good again. And then, Frozen connected with a whole generation, Wreck-It Ralph, a bunch of Moana, a bunch of great stuff in the last decade. And then it feels like, what's going on here? And when you have some of these deals that when you start out at some point in time, when you have nothing left to lose, when you're nobody, or if you're Disney and you're in a really bad place, you have nothing left to lose, you can take a chance on some creatives and outside the box. And then you get the momentum, and all of a sudden you're trying to play safe because you don't want to mess up the momentum. But that means you're violating the rules by which you started the momentum. And you stop attracting as interesting of talent. When something is broken and you're willing to do anything, you can attract some really interesting people to work on it. When you're starting out, you can attract really interesting people to your group that don't play by the normal rules. When you're on top of the world and you're trying to follow up Endgame, there's really high expectations, and you got to play it safe. And interesting storytellers, they don't want to do that. They don't want to work for Mickey Mouse fitting into a nice, safe little formula. So you lose some of that momentum, you lose some of the excitement, and you have these ups and downs. It's kind of the way it works. Alec, I haven't seen King of the Hill, but I thought it was kind of making fun of Texas. Oh, it is Texans making fun of Texans, though. Wildly different. It is like it is not at all like California looking down. Mike Judge spends a ton of time in Austin, films his movies in Austin. He understands the culture, and so like you watch King of the Hill, and it's absolutely making fun of Texas, but in the way that it's like making fun, joking around with your friends, making fun of each other. Like I love my friends, and I make fun of my friends. That's not the same thing as the cool kids making fun of the nerdy kids. And Mike Judge comes off like he's one of us having fun with us. And Rich Hollywood person making fun of small town Texan feels like cool kid making fun of the nerdy kid. But so yeah, King of the Hill, it's absolutely a comedy based off the weird culture that is Texas. But like it rings true. It doesn't ring like someone that doesn't understand the culture looking down on it, making fun of it. It rings like one of us making fun of us. Just totally fine. It's when an outsider that doesn't understand a culture is just making fun of stereotypes, has no love for the thing that he's making fun of. That's cruel and mean-spirited. Mike Judge is a Texan. Raiders Radar, as a Disney cast member, even working for the company, it has changed. Sad. Yeah, that's what I hear. Like that's the vibe that I get. That's just something is very broken in the system as a whole. So too bad. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Glad the technology worked this week. That makes it much more fun to do these when I feel like I'm putting out a watchable video with audio that you can listen to without hurting your ears, that actually has video quality that's worth watching. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your support. And I should see you next week. Bye-bye.